about it. Tell me all about it. I'm here. I wanna know what's on your mind. Ooh, the world needs to hear from you, and I'm so glad to have a conversation to reach the nation. And it's all about you. We'll help each other to discover innovative ways to positively change the world. Let's talk about. Let's talk about. Let's talk about conversations with Nicole.
Greetings. Happy Wednesday. I am Nicole Everett, the host of Conversations with Nicole, and welcome. This is what I call Wellness Wednesday. Wellness Wednesday is an opportunity for you and me and my guests to have an interactive live discussion. And since around the middle of November, we have been covering mental wellness in Black and Brown communities. So we're going to keep that conversation going with a new topic and a new guest. I am excited and delighted to have our guest here today. She actually came as a result of a recommendation from another clinician who was on that is also from the great state of Arkansas, Miss Isis Petway. And I got connected with Isis through Dr. Janelle Robinson, who's right here in Tallahassee, but she's from Arkansas. So you see how all that connection happens? It's a lovely thing. It's a wonderful thing. So before I introduce my guest, I want to hear from you. I want to know where you are tuning in from. So if you will, in the comments, enter your city and state, and I will give you a shout out. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and on the Greater Works Network on Roku TV. So tell a friend. They need to tune in. We have an interesting discussion tonight, and this is interactive. So we do expect to hear from you, your comments, your questions around the topic that we will be discussing tonight. Black women and postpartum. Do Black women get postpartum? I put that question out there because for a long time, I had heard that was something that Black women did not experience, that was something that only white women experienced. So we're going to talk about it. So I see you, Kinsu Wolf in Indianapolis. Thanks for tuning in. Miss T, Tallahassee. Thanks for tuning in. And my godmom, Corliss in Miami. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. So as the others of you are chiming in, I see you, my sister Shayla, down in South Florida. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We're going to get started. But again, tag a friend, tell them they need to be on here and join the conversation. All right. So our guest is Miss Mackenzi Davis. She received her Bachelor's of Arts in Psychology from Philander Smith College, HBCU Love, in 2010. She returned to school in 2012, received her Master's of Social Work degree from the University of Arkansas at Little Rock, and she works full-time at Arkansas Children's Hospital, and that's where she developed her interest and passion for perinatal mental health. In 2022, she became a certified perinatal mental health provider in the state of Arkansas, and I will also add the first African American to receive that certification in the state of Arkansas. So we are privileged to have her here. She said that one of the most consistent things that she has learned in her time as a therapist, social work in general, is that creating safe spaces for people of color is part of her purpose. When she is not working at the Arkansas Children's Hospital, you can find her teaching diversity and oppression at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock. So, and she also she started her private practice, but she's going to be officially launching it in the summer. And it's called Holding Space Counseling, which I absolutely love that name. So help me welcome Miss Mackenzi Davis.
Hi. Hi.
Hi. Welcome.
Thank you for having me and inviting me.
Absolutely, my pleasure. So glad you're here. So we got Ozzy chiming in from Virginia Beach. Thanks for chiming in, Ozzy. Ozzy was our guest on Monday. We talked around nutrition and mindset. And Ozzy, I will tell you, people have been asking me about that Himalayan salt. Somebody texted me this morning to ask me if I had some Himalayan salt, and my mom today was saying she was getting some Himalayan salt. So that tip that you gave on Wednesday, on Monday, really stuck with some folks. So thank you for that. I actually put out a tip list. So for those of you who missed it, I put Ozzy's nutritional tips out on IG. So check that out because you all have homework because he'll be back at the end of April. See how you all did on your nutritional tips. All right, so my mom is here. Thanks, Mom. My sister friend Chastity, she's here in Tallahassee. Thank you, thank you. So I appreciate that. So Mackenzi, tell the folks, tell the peoples, who is Mackenzi Davis? Not what you do, but who is Mackenzi Davis?
Well, I don't know. It's such a complex question. I think it would depend on what day it is. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I think ultimately, if I just had to, like, who am I? I think that um, I'm just this black girl from Eudora, Arkansas, whose mom wouldn't let her be anything less than what she knew she could be. I am I have learned and grown to be a wonderful friend, a wonderful daughter, and everything in between.
Mhm.
I myself have had ex- experiences with just honestly dealing with my own reproductive issues. And so I always say God really has a sense of humor because so many things happen alongside my journey to become certified in perinatal mental health. But I welcome that and I feel like it's part of my purpose. And so I I love it. It makes my heart happy. Um, I love talking about Black women. We're just so dope. Like we're just amazing. And so like I just love talking about Black women. I love Black women. I love my friends um that are Black women. And so that's me in a nutshell there.
That's great. I love it. And
Like a
what a
so
great
smart.
way what a great way to close out Women's History Month. So
Yes.
I'm excited about this conversation because, as I stated in the greeting, that a lot of times we have heard that postpartum depression was a white woman thing
Mm-hmm.
and something that Black women did not experience or get. So we're gonna dive in. I got a few more folks that saying hey. So let me say greetings. I see you, John. Hey there, Lynette. Thank you for tuning in. Shaquaylin, thank you. Janae, I saw a few of these folks just now at the event that I just came in from, which is Working Class Wednesday. Shout out to that. And then come on now, we are dope. Yes, that's my sister Shayla down in South Florida. So wonderful. So before we dive in, I have a little disclaimer that I must read. Just you're just trying to make sure we do what's responsible here. So please know that this show is not to be a substitute for counseling. All right. So all topics, past, present, and future on Conversations with Nicole are for informational purposes only. They are not to be used as a diagnosis for treatment or any answer to any questions or personal issues related to the topic being discussed before, during, or after the program. So I got to put that out there. All right. All right. So let's dive in. Let's dive in. So where you want to start, Kenzie?
Um, I don't know. I think honestly, I think the best place to start is just the simple definition of like what is postpartum depression.
Okay.
So if you don't mind, I would like to start there.
Absolutely. I don't mind at all.
Thank
So
you.
what's the definition of postpartum?
Yes. So, one of the big things to note and to remember is that when people talk about postpartum depression, we're not just looking at a specific space per se. Postpartum depression is considered to be from the time of conception up until the first year following having your baby. And so, when we look at adding in that depression, it really goes back to like just your hormones, what you're already predisposed to. When we look at like what is the definition of depression, what does that look like? We know that it looks like just having a very um, your mood is disrupted. You seem kind of gloomy. You easily agitated. Your sleep is disrupted, and not just like the normal sleep disruption that comes with have with being pregnant, because there is some discomfort there. But I'm talking about not being able to fall asleep because your brain and your thoughts are going 1,000 miles a minute. A lack of energy, and that's different from being pregnant, because again, there are certain things that are to be expected when you're pregnant, but it can easily turn into a space of depression depending on how it's presenting itself. So like having suicidal thoughts, that's always a big red flag. Suicidal oh, what's the word I'm looking
Ideations.
for? Attempts, um, changes in your appetite, things like that. And so, in translation, it's just like the depression symptoms during conception and that first year of following giving birth. Um, yeah, so there's that.
Okay, so I didn't know that was a time frame. So thank you for providing
Mhm.
some clarity on that.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned some behaviors that may be normal for pregnancy, but in
Mhm.
terms of being some exhaustion and whatnot. But if it's extreme fatigue or exhaustion, then there may be something else going on, right?
Right. So again, it's normal to have some change in your energy when you're pregnant,
Hmm.
but when it gets to a place of like you just can't rest, like you rest all day but your energy is not restored. You know, most pregnant women or women that are through that journey, um, they take a nap when they're tired, because your energy is going to be depleted. You literally just gave life to an entire human being. Of
Right.
course, your energy is disrupted. But when somebody is able to come in and take care of the baby so you can take a nap or rest, and you do that, but then you wake up and you're still exhausted, and it's kind of one of those things where it's a pattern or you notice it happening more so than not, then that's a red flag for me. Like
Okay.
if when I hear a mama tell me that, I start asking more questions. You
Mhm.
know, I start kind of like, okay, I need to put you on my list. Um and make sure that when that time comes, we can have a thorough follow-up, because a lot of times we get baby blues and postpartum depression real mixed up, and there's
Hmm.
a difference, you know.
Okay, so hold on. Baby blues and postpartum depression. Yeah, tell us what the difference is between the two.
Right. So baby blues is something that we expect to happen. Like seriously, again, you just gave birth to an entire human being. So there, because you've had all those like all of the hormonal changes that comes with that, we expect there to be a shift in your mood. Having the crying spells, increased anxiety. And what we look at there is the fact that it is partly because of the extreme sleep deprivation that mothers go through. And typically it lasts between 2 days and 10 days, with the peak of it being like 3 to 5 days. So when we get past those 2 weeks, and that's why a lot of screenings, they say do not screen until that 2 to 4 or 6 week time frame. It depends on what provider you're going through and what their policy says about it. I when people kind of say, yeah, I just got a little bit of the baby blues, and they had that baby 3 months ago, it's no longer baby blues. You're depressed. Or I would have a hard time um, accepting that it's baby blues versus actual depression because of that time frame.
Okay, so that again, that's good to know. I again didn't know that there was kind of a time frame associated with it. Well, I want to get some input from the viewers. So, how many of you, and I don't know, who's on here in terms of having had a child before, but I guess the ones of you who are on here that have had a child, how many of you heard that uh, Black women didn't get postpartum? And if you can just show by raising your church finger or waving your hand or giving me a thumbs up, how many of you have heard that Black women did not experience postpartum depression and anxiety? Let us know. I want to know what y'all heard. Let us know. Let us know. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because, I think the expectation for Black women has been, you all can handle it. You're strong. So because of the expectations of us being this kind of superwoman, resilient, you're just not phased by anything. You're a workhorse. You got to keep moving and going, and you don't have time to, be depressed or be sad or anxious or anything like that. All
or
right,
feeling emotion, period.
Yes. Yes.
Like, don't get me started on Black. Well, actually, get me started. I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get there.
All right. So I was curious. I wanted to know, again, what folks, what they've heard. So Quay said, I don't have any children, but I've heard the opposite. I learned it from a white woman. Okay. So Ms. T said, do the chances of having postpartum increase or decrease with age?
So there isn't necessarily any research out there that ties your age with postpartum depression. What I've seen is more like a connection between whether you're predisposed to having a mental illness, like you were depressed before you got pregnant and didn't know, then like that predisposition has really been connected in research. But I would like to say, like, if we want to stretch that and look at it, even ideally, what happens like as you grow older, because there's so many changes, there's so many, like an argument, in my opinion, could be made that there's an increase or a decrease with age simply because, when you're younger and you have a baby, like you're in a completely different space. Like you are not the same person that you're going to be 20 years from now or even 5 years from now. And so, and a lot of that has to do with like your current stressors, like the life you're living, the choices that you're making. All of that takes into account. So for some women, when they're younger and if they're in the thick of it, of their trauma, they haven't healed and they just have a lot going on, then yeah, they have a very high chance. And you can probably take that same woman when she has a baby in her 20s and then she has a baby in her 30s where she's more stable, her basic social her social determinants of health are being met, or as I love to reflect on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like if that basis is being met, then you are less likely to experience postpartum depression because you don't have the same stressors that you did when you were in your 20s.
Okay. Again, great points. Great points. Now, you mentioned social determinants of health.
Mhm.
Excuse me. Talk about the. Oh, tell us about that.
Yeah. So social determinants of health, it really is becoming more of, I don't want to say a buzzword, but it provides an umbrella or a visual of what people need in general. And so when we look at the social determinants of health, we are looking at your education level, we are looking at your job status, we're looking at where you live, we are looking at your access to health and mental health services. We're looking at racial disparities that come along, such as like um, the racism that we face um, in the work field, and microaggressions, systemic racism. Found it, y'all. I was searching for it. Got it. Um, so when you hear social determinants of health, because I believe that it's like a shift across the United States where they're looking at this, like allowing social determinants of health to be a lens to look at all of these things for, because there's research that shows when your basic needs are met, like your basic needs are met, you are more likely to follow up with doctor's appointments, go to the doctor, um, follow those recommendations, take your medications, and things like that. And so that's what I mean by that.
Very good. Sorry about that. Had a little tickle in my throat.
Listen.
All right. So I would imagine that the research on Black women in postpartum is kind of limited.
Oh, it is so limited. Before, when we spoke, you know, I told you I was going to do some more research because your girl likes to be prepared.
Right.
And, I was already looking up stuff just to prepare for some other stuff. But what I found in that research is every year, more than just in general, just to kind of put postpartum depression or just into context, uh, every year, more than 400,000 infants are born to mothers that are depressed, which makes perinatal depression the most underdiagnosed obstetric complication in America. So that means for 400,000 infants are born to depressed mothers. And so even when we take that, we look at, for like, in general, 1 in 7 women are experience postpartum depression. If we want to expand that more, 1 in 10 men experience postpartum depression. And so considerably, um, when we look at even just like racial disparities in the mortality rate that comes to Black women,
Mm-hmm.
um, when I found out these numbers, they really, okay, I'm not gonna cry, but it
No.
made me so sad because statistics show even to this day 43.5 deaths per 100,000 live births for Black women. That means half, almost 50,000 babies are left motherless.
Oh wow.
Like, you just let that sink in for a minute.
Yeah.
And that's compared to 14.4 deaths for women of color or ethical racial groups. And
Wow.
that's
So so,
compared
Jan-
to
so Janae
12.
wants you to say the
Oh,
number. What was that
what
number
was
of
that
women
number?
who are depressed?
And this is not specific to Black women, but just like
Right. In general.
400,000 women. 400,000.
400,000. Wow.
Um,
And so her follow-up question is when babies are born. Yes.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right. So we got a lot of questions. A lot of questions.
Okay. I'm gonna add this last
Go
statistic
ahead. Ask the
in.
last. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
12.7 deaths per 100,000 live births for white women.
Hmm.
So they're not even, nobody is dying at the rate that Black women are.
So Lynette wants to know. is there any research that speaks about the kids born to depressed mothers and how does this impact development, if any?
Absolutely. I actually downloaded an article that like literally addresses just that. I have not had the opportunity to read it or go through it, but there is some research out there that addresses that piece of it.
Okay. Solomon wants to know. Hey Solomon, thanks for being on. What role does what role do men play to
Mhm.
help women deal with postpartum depression? Now, I heard you say that men go through postpartum depression, so I definitely want to hear a
Mhm.
little bit more about that. And what can we
Absolutely.
do without getting in the way, or do we play a role at all?
Black men play a role. I was sitting on a panel last night, and that came up not just necessarily within the prenatal stance, but just what role does the Black man play in the lives of Black girls and Black women?
Mhm.
You need to be there, and not just the body. You need to be there, be present,
Whole space.
allow your partner to experience this beautiful thing of giving life without having to worry about keeping up with everything else in the house. Ask her, what is it that you need from me? And not after the baby is born, when you find out she's pregnant. Ask then, like, make that part of the conversations that you're having as you go through this journey, because I don't know about y'all, but me, if I'm already overwhelmed and have a lot going on, I have a really hard time with communicating my needs when I'm in the thick of it.
Mhm.
So for me, and what I know, it's a good conversation to have beforehand, making sure you go to the doctor's appointments, like truly just showing up. One of the statistics that I read and that came out even last night, one of the panel actually brought it up and came to my attention, was
Mhm.
that 72% of Black women are single parents.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Did they not?
Really?
Yeah, 72% of Black mothers are single parents.
Wow.
And I
Wow.
hope, and this, when we get research and things like that, we can always expect it to be a couple of years behind. But I think this article was written, let me
I
check.
wouldn't have thought it was that high.
I, this article was written in 2017 that I read. And so there, it might have changed, and I pray it's changed. But that's
Change to go
also,
down, hopefully, not go up.
yeah, absolutely. I hope, because I see a lot more um, fathers in the home, and that makes a difference. But 72%, that's a lot. It's high.
Hmm. It is. That is. So, a couple more questions. Well, a comment from Lynette. She said, I know there's a lot of funding to assist with the abortion of Black babies, but what about therapy and postpartum care?
Yeah. So it really, honestly, it depends on your insurance. If
Hmm.
you don't, and I ain't got
Don't get
started.
you started. Don't get you started. I see it already.
um, so you remember me talking about social determinants of health, right? One piece in that is access to medical care. If you work, if your way of making money and making a living is through like fast food, Walmart, Target, things like that, your insurance may not reflect what you need, which typically some some of the um, some of the policies don't even have access to mental health services. I think Walmart does because they do Blue Cross Blue Shield, but don't
Mhm.
quote me on that. I see Lynette's.
So
Oh,
yeah, her question was, is postpartum care part of Medicaid services?
I don't know. I had a friend that just asked me that question. Um, so I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it it would be best to get with the provider, whoever
yeah.
the provider is of the Medicaid, and see if that,
Mhm.
if that's something that is offered.
And even with that, if they do offer that maternal mental health with Medicaid, um, are like even finding a provider that accepts Medicaid
Right.
can prove to be difficult. So there are barriers that are in the way, but I'm not sure what the policy says for Medicaid.
Yeah. Right. More questions. Quay said, "How do you support a new mom who may have a hard time accepting that she's experiencing postpartum depression?"
Just show up.
Mm,
You show up for, you know, one of the things in mental health is people, like, you can't force anybody to get help. Um, Sometimes I run across families or where they say, my husband needs therapy. And follow-up question is, does your husband want therapy? No, he don't want it. Then he has to want it. So she has to want it. But in an effort to support her, what that looks like, what I feel like it looks like, is in what ways do you show up for your friend that doesn't focus necessarily on that? So if we know some of those stressors, such as going to her house and before you look at the baby, before you pick up that baby, you wash some dishes, you
mm,
do some laundry.
mhm,
Um, One of the things that I've learned is just how important that is. Um, like the people, like just being able to go into her home
mhm.
and just help out in any way you can before you hang out with the baby. Or if mom says, I haven't showered in a couple of days. Oh, okay. Well, I'll take the baby. You go shower, take a nap. So for me, and take it with a grain of salt or not, um, I believe that um, if she's having a hard time accepting that she's experiencing it, you could do more damage to the, not damage, but it could, you don't want to push her away. You don't want her to feel like she has to be on guard or feel like she can't talk to you about things, because then she'll shut down like all of us do. But there are ways around it by lessening the stress that they have at home.
Okay, good point. So my play niece, who's a nurse, is texting me. She said most doctors don't offer routine follow-ups after the 6 weeks, and that's when moms need it most.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Let's see. So we got again quite a few questions and comments. Solomon is back. He said, "How many of those 72% is voluntary? I know of a sister now who is 10 weeks pregnant and she's not ashamed. At least she's saying she's not because she jumped into a situation with a man that already had someone." Mm,
I don't think whether it's voluntarily or not makes a difference. She's a
yeah,
single mother.
right. So yeah, that's a whole nother live, Solomon.
Hmm.
Let's see. Isis is on. She said, "Facts. I can only help someone who wants to help." Also ask what support looks like. Don't forget to check on moms. Yes.
Absolutely.
Chastity said that can be life saving to a new mom. I always try to help my friends who are new moms. Support is vital. All right, and we got E on here. He says, "Here for the wonderful black woman who shares my daughter's name, Mackenzi." All right.
She got to be dope. She has to be the coolest kid on the block.
Yes. All
Absolutely.
right. Lynette said, "Are there community programs outreach that assist with postpartum care?"
They're few, but they are, I feel like they are starting to pop up more.
Mhm.
But I also feel like doulas have really they are really embedded in like just that community program and outreach, because if you have a doula, one of those benefits is that they follow you from conception all the way to like a certain time after you give birth. I know a wonderful doula in St. Petersburg, Florida, who um, and she's there with them the entire time. And then she comes over and she comes into the home and she does exactly what I talked about earlier. She folds clothes, she does the dishes, she takes the baby so that mama can nap. There are doulas out here that people are able to work with, that they come in at nighttime so that mom and dad can both get the sleep that they need. um, I know that there is Shades of Blue in Houston, Texas, is a Black owned or minority owned community outreach program where their goal is to provide those services and postpartum care through like assessments, mental health, a variety of things. And that's in Houston. And they also address like policy behind maternal mental health and postpartum care.
Okay.
That's the only one that comes to my mind right now, or that I have been able to find information on.
Okay. I'm gonna circle back on your comment about men having postpartum.
Okay.
Just want to touch on that a little bit. So you mentioned that I have not heard of that before. So
Oh, yeah.
talk a
Okay.
little bit around that.
I sure will. Um, so, yeah, men experience postpartum depression, and I will happily tell you what that looks like and the causes of it. One is just the anxiety of being the sole breadwinner in the home now, and that idea that they have to protect and take care of the family now. It looks like just the lack of connection between their partner. So mom is taking care of the baby, and there's no balance between the partners so that they can make time for themselves. And so sometimes the man feels left out and unacknowledged, and things like that. I'm actively, like right now, I'm working with a family that is absolutely what's happening. And they're experiencing postpartum depression. And their circumstances are a little different, but I'm actively working with them now. But also looking at, I already talked about the one income piece of it, the lack of connection that can happen just naturally. If your partner has been diagnosed with postpartum depression, that does increase the risk for the man as well.
Wow. Okay. Again, had no idea. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and what it looks like, because it does look different in women versus men.
Mhm.
One of the things that it looks like is shutting down. It looks like disengaging, so playing more video games, um, and just like really blocking it all out.
Mhm.
There might be an increase in drinking or utilizing substances to kind of cope with it. It looks like being more agitated and angry. So it looks different than how it would look in a woman.
So Lynette is asking if a woman doesn't want to have sex, does that lead to postpartum depression for the man?
I don't know.
Mm.
Have
We
you
had
know?
heard of that one before.
Lynette, you over here with the questions, girl.
She got all the questions. I love it.
Yeah, all of them. I love it. I love it. I need to write some of this down so I can go back and look at it.
Yes, look, and the folks in the replay, we want to hear y'all's comments too. So,
Mm-hmm.
all right, Rachel is giving out doula information. She said Jamil Jackson is a doula in Tallahassee. I know there are several doulas here in Tallahassee, so
Mm-hmm.
that is a service that you definitely want to look into.
Absolutely. I'm seeing or reading more about women who hire a doula alongside their OB. And I'll tell you the reason behind that. um, a big part of that is because they want somebody in their corner. They want somebody on their side, someone that knows their birthing plan and actively advocates for it to make sure that after they have the baby that things are being done the way that the parent wants it to be done to the best of their ability. Of course, things happen. Um, you know, unexpected complications happen, but for the most part, their role, what they do for the parents in that situation, is really support the family because they recognize this is a life changing event. It's a beautiful event, but it is life changing. And they are there to support however it looks like. Decide, yeah, they're wonderful. I have such a respect for doulas.
Yeah, getting some positive feedback about doulas here. Let
Mhm.
me. So I'm going to again get the viewers involved. How many outside of Sharita? How many of you have utilized a doula with your pregnancy and delivery and recovery? How many of you again? Give me a wave, a thumbs up, church finger. How many of you have utilized a doula with your pregnancy, delivery, or recovery? Yeah, I'm like Isis. I wish I had known about doulas back when I had my son some 30 years ago, because it sounds like they really are advocates for you as
Mhm.
well as support, um,
Absolutely.
and could definitely be part of your team, your birthing team.
And you need, and I really feel like Black women specifically need it just due to the what you can easily call just systemic racism when it comes to the medical field, like
Mm.
how they don't believe Black women when they come in with complaints or or have some or they don't respect their birthing plan or don't acknowledge it. Um, it's very much so needed because it's like, oh, okay, I have a doula here now, so it
So,
makes such a difference.
so I'm gonna circle back on that just a little bit, because I think what you said was so important. And for folks that are listening, I would like to get you all to chime in on this as well. You know, you talked about a lot of times when Black women are in a hospital or under a doctor's care, especially one that or a nurse that doesn't look like them. Sometimes they're um, expressing themselves about what they're feeling or going through is ignored or not taken as serious. So I want to hear from you all. Have you all experienced that? Any of the Black women that are on the live right now, have you experienced that your your concerns and care were not seriously taken? Maybe that could have been when you were in delivery and you were about to get an epidural, but they didn't believe that, you were in as much pain as you were, or it could be a number of things. But if you've experienced something like that, just again, wave your hand, thumbs up, something, let us know. I think some of the myth from a medical perspective has been again that whole strong Black woman, and she can take it, and it's, you
Mhm.
know, no.
And it also comes from I don't know if you guys know who Jay Marion Sims is. I personally think him to be a trash individual because he was part of the reason why part of that system in which Black women were not believed when it comes to pain, or they reported that Black women experience pain on a higher level than other people because, and he's considered like the father of gynecology. And that's because he did these experiments on three Black women
Mm,
without any pain medication. So they were just going through these experiences, this pain, and it it helped with the progression of where medicine has come, but it also provided, in my opinion, the foundation to which black it's a thing, or to it's a it's a barrier to black women getting what they need because
Mhm.
of the thoughts that they experience pain on a different level.
Mm. Yeah. So we definitely got to speak up about that. And
Mhm.
if we're not being served well as it relates to that, then we need to tell the supervisor, tell the administrators at the
Mhm.
hospitals. Um, if this is a nonprofit hospital, tell the board of directors. We got to speak up and say something about this because our health is important,
Mhm. And I
and
think, I'm sorry, go ahead. I get ready to
and
say
it needs to be
something.
taken serious.
Yeah. And I think that for me, and part of the piece of my private practice that I feel very strongly about is working with Black women to advocate for themselves, to not settle just because it's a doctor talking to them. Because they know, as a woman, you know your body.
Hmm.
You know your body. You know your body better than the doctor. He has the knowledge to help you. But if he's not providing you with the care that you need, if you feel like you're not being listened to or heard, you can fire him.
Hmm.
Like, you can request someone else.
Yeah.
That is your right as a patient.
So I'm glad you said that because I think sometimes we don't maybe we don't think that that's an option.
It sure is. When like, just going back to your question about if we've experienced that in the medical field, I do not have children of my own, but as I said before, um I've struggled with reproductive health for the last X number of years. And a few years ago, I ended up in the hospital where a doctor barely looked at me, sent me home.
Mm.
I got home, almost bled out to the point of passing out, had to call the ambulance, and another hospital, go to that hospital who did believe me, who ran the test, who did what I needed them to do. But the first thing they said to me was, "You need a hysterectomy." I was
Mm.
26 years old at the time. And it happened so often, like, I was in the hospital for a couple of days, so it happened enough that by the time that last group of doctors came in and they said, "Yeah, I really think it's time for a hysterectomy," I said, "If you're going to say that to me one more time, you can leave and find me somebody that's willing to look at my situation and actually try and help me."
Right.
And you know what they did? They did just that.
Hmm.
They
Good for
did.
you. Good for you.
So there's always space to advocate. You just have to have, it's important just having someone that will let you know, that will give you permission to
Mhm.
ask those questions. So,
Yeah. So Lynette put up that she also struggles with reproductive health, and she's thank you for your transparency. I think I'm finding out that there are a lot of women that are struggling with reproductive health, and
yeah.
we need to be talking more about this.
Absolutely. Black women are more susceptible to PCOS, endometriosis, and fibroids. Me, myself, I have struggled with endometriosis, and I've struggled with fibroids. Um, and essentially, that's what led to me getting sick and, having issues, and to certain things that happened last year to which I did have to do something about it. But we're more likely to experience those things than other races. And not only that, we are, um, I lost my train of thought. We are, one of the things we don't talk about is the fact that Black women do have like, they do struggle with getting pregnant.
Mm.
Like, it's not just one particular race that struggles with fertility issues.
Right.
Black women struggle with fertility. And I don't know why it's not talked about. I don't know if it's just like a stereotype that, oh, Black women just have babies all the time. But I don't know why, but we don't get that space.
Mm-hmm.
We don't get it. But Black women struggle with fertility.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of times it's at the hands of PCOS and endometriosis and fibroids.
Mm-hmm. So Solomon said Black women need to educate themselves more on their own health as well as their baby's health. Black men are worse, but Black women need to definitely improve in this area. Solomon was stationed in Hawaii, and he noticed that the Asians and Polynesian women were very in tune with their bodies and health.
Yeah.
So we got to do a better job. I think there also too is, when you start talking about reproductive health, sex comes up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sex is so taboo in
Mm-hmm.
terms of having open dialogue and conversation about it. And part of the tabooness, I think, for some is because there's been um, sexual abuse or assault or what have you at a young age. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's healing that needs to be done around that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think part of that comes from, again, something we talked about last night on the panel. It comes from like just the over sexualization that Black girls go through.
Mm,
And so to combat that, a lot of times because of what parents have went through, whether it was their own sexual abuse or what they learned from their parents, we are taught to not appreciate our body, to respect our bodies, to learn about our bodies. Instead, we are almost shamed for it because we are curvy or because we have, our body is shaped the way it is.
mhm,
But I think that there's so much power in empowering that piece in Black girls,
mhm,
but also teaching them to honor their bodies.
mhm. Yes. Very good point. Very good point. Now that stress, um, or depression and anxiety that the mother is experiencing can be passed on to the baby, right?
Hmm. The what can?
The stress, the anxiety, the depression,
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
postpartum can be passed on to the baby.
Yeah, babies feel that. They feel the stress.
Hmm.
Absolutely. I thoroughly believe that. And I see it at my job. I believe that.
Hmm. Hmm. All right. So Princess had a question about is it hereditary? She said her great grandmother had 12 children, but some of my aunts had reproductive issues that made them either childless or miscarry.
That I'm not sure about, honestly,
Okay.
because you know, like my mom had 3 kids. My sister has a child. So I don't know if it's hereditary or not.
Okay. That's fine.
Yeah, I've read a lot of research on a lot of it deals. A lot of it is access to healthy food stores, and
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of it can be traced back to what we're putting in our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
So those things that are filled with hormones and things that just shouldn't be in your food, that there's a connection there. And so if you think about again in the idea of social determinants of health, then that it, in a sense it makes sense because if you don't if you have $3 or $4 generals in your area and have like a McDonald's and fast food restaurants, then you don't have access to it if you don't have a vehicle to travel to go get it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do have a vehicle and you say, okay, I'm gonna eat healthy, it costs like $5 for an apple in these health food stores.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so much money to eat healthy.
Yeah.
And if it's a matter of me eating healthy versus keeping lights on, um, with for in the home, we're gonna go to McDonald's.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Yeah. Access matters, like Isa said.
Hmm. It makes all the difference.
It does. It does. So Thelma said, I think that menopause needs to be discussed more because when women get to that life changing moment, all those issues come with menopause.
Sure do. Sure do.
All right, so
Because
I'm putting that on my list of topics to cover.
sure do. Yep.
Mhm.
That's all I got to say about that. Absolutely.
As she sips her coffee. Look.
Mhm.
All right. So Janae said we can't even trace back to our great great mothers to know what health issues she had in order to pass down health info.
Mhm.
Yeah, in many cases that's true, but I think we gotta, do a better job of at least knowing our bodies, right?
Yep.
Becoming familiar with our bodies and really, just honing in on what's going on with yourself.
Right.
Be inquisitive and find out. Don't just, you know, something not feeling right and just let it lie. Find out what's
Mhm.
going on.
Yep.
Hmm. Let's see. So I think there was one more thing I wanted to mention. Babies feeling the stress. Motherhood can be isolating. Okay, so I guess I just wanted to kind of wrap up in terms of what you believe, and you kind of talked through it some in this conversation. Like, what's the best way to treat postpartum depression?
So happy you asked. Um, Honestly, access plays a huge role in treating postpartum depression because what we know is that um, if you already kind of know that you're predisposed to mental health illnesses, then there's power in having a therapist throughout your pregnancy and after your pregnancy. I believe that in addition to that, it's in treating postpartum depression, it comes down to your tribe. Somewhere along the road, we Black women really stopped looking out for Black women. Black families stopped looking out for other Black families. And in reality, we are not meant to do life alone. We are not meant to raise our children alone. We need a tribe. We need a community in order to be successful, in order to get your needs met, which is why there's such a strong push and pull and just a lot of information surrounding the importance of having a community with you while you have a baby, while after you give birth. And so I really feel very strongly about that amongst anything else. I have a friend who um, I truly believe like she was able to bypass that because her community, like her family ties, her support, her tribe showed up and showed out for her where she was able to get sleep on a regular. She was able to have time to she had time to eat her meals. She had time to pump. She didn't have to worry about bills or things like that because her community wrapped around her. And that is so important because we truly are not meant to do this life alone.
Mhm.
And it doesn't have to be family. It doesn't.
Right.
But having quality friendships, having genuine friendships, you really can't go wrong with that.
Okay. So therapists and support or your tribe.
Hmm.
Okay.
And screening,
Screening.
good, appropriate screening throughout the journey.
Okay.
Research shows that, and it goes back and forth. It depends on what article you're looking at or where you're pulling your information from.
Mhm.
But ideally, um, there should be one screening done while you're pregnant, and I believe that that is due to just at least trying to get a baseline or get an idea. Then you should also be screened at either 4 weeks or 6 weeks. The Postpartum Support International, they recommend 2 weeks, and then after that you should be screened at like the 3 month mark and then the 6 month mark and then at the 1 year mark. So, on top of it, and then it spreads out towards the end. Um, so when you catch it early, you're able to start treatment early and the mama is not drowning.
Mm.
So early screening is definitely key.
Gotcha. So kids soon. uh, said that I have 7 kids, last at 43. It was very hard on our marriage. It changed everything. We were both going through it. Our last baby is our miracle, but during my pregnancy and after, it was extremely hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry about that.
Mhm.
That's hard, and that sounds it's very stressful.
Yeah. And she also said my birthing plan was ignored. Oh boy. Wow. That's why you got to have some advocates, you know, somebody else
Yeah,
in your corner
absolutely.
helping to honor your plan and
Hmm.
yeah.
Yep.
All right, so Ozzy has a little red clover nutritional herbal remedy here. So thank you, Ozzy, for that. Solomon said, Black men will leave their own women and find them a messy Caucasian woman and be the best man he can be. I'm a black man and I can attest that this is what our brothers do. Yeah, sometimes that's the case, but again, hopefully we can have a tribe that will come and support us and the baby,
Hmm.
um, and help us get through it. So
Yes, we definitely
I
need
got
to.
so I
We
got
do.
again the best treatment, therapy, support from your tribe, your village, folks that can hold space for you, as well as
Hmm.
screening frequently
Yep.
throughout the pregnancy. Anything else?
Um, Honestly, I think those are the key things that I would like for everyone to remember because those things might be difficult, but they are accessible.
Okay, cool. Janae said, "Let me start working on my baby village. So when that time comes, I'm ready." All right, Janae.
Yes,
Didn't
ma'am.
even know you
I
had to have a baby village, right?
Yes, ma'am. And I tell, like, I'm a firm believer in planning. So, talk to like, if you have a doula or talk to your doctor about helping you kind of work through like a safety plan. If you have a therapist, work with your therapist on it. But ultimately, it's like a plan of what's important to you after you have your baby, so
Hmm.
that you don't have to have these conversations very often. Like, you don't have to actively, continuously tell people what you need. You can just post it somewhere and and just like, this is what I need, and even like provide it to your tribe before the baby is born. There's a lot of power in having knowledge and being able to prep appropriately when you're in the process of giving, when you're pregnant.
Okay. Good deal. Good deal. Oh, this has been great. This has been
Mm.
great. So, Kenzie, how can folks connect with you?
So, right now, you would have to holler at me on Facebook. But in the next few couple of months or so, I will have my like my Facebook page and stuff available for my private practice.
Okay.
As we get closer to things, I'll start doing a slow rollout on that.
Okay.
Starting April 11th, on my Facebook, which is Kenzie Davis, I will start doing Maternal Mental Health Mondays, and
Mm,
that will be a space for you to come, ask your questions, to hear good information about anything related to maternal mental health. Because I will absolutely ask for like topic discussions and stuff like that. So
I
that's
love that.
where you can find me.
Maternal Mental Health Mondays.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, nice. All right, so they can on Facebook find you at Kenzie Davis, right?
Yeah.
All right. But once you get rolling, um, in terms of rolling out the business, I will circle back and put your information in so folks can follow you
Awesome.
there
Thank
as well. So super excited that you
you.
are rolling out the mental health, maternal mental health Mondays, as well
Mhm.
as about the business.
Yep. Education is powerful. Information is powerful. There's no gatekeeper when it comes to maternity health.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. All right, so we got quite a few people chiming in saying thank you. Oh, he said for his daughter's twin. Thank you, Quay, for being here. All right, so at Kenzie Davis on Facebook. So definitely follow her. And for those of you who are interested in maternal mental health, she is licensed in Arkansas, but also will just be providing those tips on Mondays, or the conversations on Mondays.
Yes.
So I want to thank you so much for being here and sharing your knowledge and expertise.
No, thank you for having me, Nicole. Isis, I don't know if you're still in here, but thank you for recommending me. This has been, it just makes my heart happy because I get to talk about what I love. So
Yeah.
I'm very grateful that you guys held space for me to start this important conversation and that I was able to take up some space to do that. So.
Absolutely. No, I love it. I appreciate you being on here. Lynette said, is there a book about barriers to healthcare you recommend?
I don't know, but I'm gonna put it on my list to look for one.
Okay.
I have not come across one.
Okay. Cool. So I gotta do my plug for Conversations with Nicole. For those of you who are new to the platform, if you would, on YouTube, subscribe. Please subscribe. Subscribing and supporting, and we need all the support we can get. And I tell folks, treat it like a podcast. Let those views, let the videos play, because I definitely can use the views. So we are here Mondays and Wednesdays, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. So usually try to keep you at about an hour. And again, we're talking mental health in Black and Brown communities and trying to normalize the conversation. So let's keep the conversation going. Let's keep the conversation going. Please tag a friend, share this link, the YouTube link, with someone that you think would benefit from this conversation. And we do have some interesting topics lined up for next week. Trauma is on Monday. Actually, the sister I just talked to today. And then on Wednesday, let's see, hold on, real quick. Wednesday, which is the 6th. Oh, psychiatric evaluations, Loranta Rush. So that should be interesting. That should be really interesting. Let's see. So thank you all. Thank you to the viewers for being here. We really appreciate your engagement. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Y'all be safe out there. We're winding up Women's History Month and the month of March. So be safe, be careful, and we'll see you next time. Bye.